Are you a caregiver for an aging spouse or parent diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia? Are you frustrated by repetitive behaviors? Maybe they ask the same question over and over again, or repeat a word, or maybe they pace throughout the house. You try to respond and it just falls flat. You only become more frustrated. I'm Pamela Wilson. I solve caregiving problems. For the past 20 years, I have been on call 24/7, helping caregivers and aging adults. I've responded to caregiving emergencies. I offer support groups and programming to help manage care situations and help caregivers make decisions, but more importantly, to respond to all of the frustrations, anxiety, the crazy things that come along with caregiving. Today I'm going to share some tips to help you manage frustration of repetitive behaviors, and I want to remind you, I use humor in caregiving. I'm naturally optimistic. My belief is that caregiving is stressful enough, and by keeping it light and bringing humor into the situation makes it a lot easier. Today I'm going to share the one thing that you can do that will lighten your situation if you're caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. If you're a new caregiver, you may not have recognized the signs of dementia, and this is so common. Dementia happens about 20 years before a diagnosis often occurs, and this happens because older adults don't know to tell the doctors that they're having memory loss. Family members don't know the signs, so nobody reports until something happens, some emergency happens, some disaster happens. Alzheimer's and dementia are diagnosed, and then care needs start. As many of you know, if you've been a caregiver, the early stages of Alzheimer's are pretty normal. Eventually, some, not all, individuals will experience behaviors that get worse, and then eventually the progression is that daily difficulties happen with physical activity, so they need more help with bathing, dressing, going to the bathroom, and things like that. But frustrations are common for most caregivers. So let me give you an example. You're a new caregiver and your loved one starts repeating something, and you answer their question and you provide this long, detailed explanation. And what happens is 10 seconds later they ask the same question again. It's important to know that rationale, long explanations, with somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, it falls flat. And it's because by the time you get to the end of your explanation, they have forgotten the beginning of your explanation. So one thing that you want to avoid is you don't want to give steps. So like, well, 1 mom is this, 2 mom this, 3 mom that. Mom forgot 1 by the time you got to 3. So avoid lengthy explanations. Another common example is your parent may say that they want to go home. It's like, I want to go home, and they're pacing through the house. They may be in their bedroom taking clothes out of the dresser and packing and unpacking and all of that. And they don't realize that they're home. One of the most important things for caregivers is to try to see these situations differently rather than being frustrated or become impatient with a loved one who has repetitive behaviors. We all know Alzheimer's and dementia, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see this person, your parent, who may have been a company president. Maybe they were an airline pilot. Maybe it was mom who raised 6 kids and she had everything in order and ran the household, and today she can't remember anything. This is heartbreaking. It's difficult, and some children never get over this. It's difficult. So I'm about to share the one thing, and I did a bit of research and found something that you might be able to relate to. So imagine that you are traveling in a foreign country and you don't speak the language and you're trying to get help from someone, and they look at you like you're crazy. They can't help you. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what you want, and you only get frustrated. This is like your aging parent or spouse asking you for help, even though you speak English and they speak English. whatever you're saying quite doesn't get through to their brain, and so they continue to repeat the behavior and they're frustrated. What they're looking for from you is comfort and reassurance. And that comfort and reassurance always doesn't come from words. It comes from touch. It comes from redirecting. It comes from being calm. People with Alzheimer's, I say they have horse sense. Horses are pretty sensitive, and so are dogs. They know when people like them. People with Alzheimer's know if you're upset with them or frustrated with them. So the calmer that you can be and just respond to these situations, the easier it is for them and the easier it will be for you. There was a television show that I researched back in the early 60s. I don't know if you remember, and if you haven't, you might want to YouTube it. It's called The Outer Limits. And the show would begin with something, the introduction was something like, do not attempt to adjust your television set. We are controlling the transmission. And with your parent with Alzheimer's, it's a similar situation. They are now controlling the transmission of their life. The more playful you can be, the less serious you can be, the more that you can enter their reality, because they truly are in a different reality. They're living in a different world. And it's not of their choosing. It's because they have a brain disease that's eating away at their brain and eating away at their memory. They can remember something that happened 20 years ago. Your explanation 2 seconds ago, it's gone. The other introductory part of Outer Limits says something like, you are about to enter this great adventure. Caring for an aging parent or a spouse with Alzheimer's and dementia is a great adventure. So how do you respond to these repetitive behaviors? You validate. They may say, oh, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. You don't say you are home. You say, well, tell me about your home. What was your home like? This gives you the opportunity to validate their feelings, but it also gives you the opportunity to understand where they think home is. Home might be their parents' house, or it could be a house that they lived in years ago. Wherever it is, it's not where they are today. The other thing that you can do is redirect them. So let's say they're saying, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. You can say, well, I can help you with that, but before you go, it's a really long trip. Why don't we go and make lunch? And then after lunch, I'll help you get home. In many cases, after lunch, they may not even remember the conversation about going home. If they do, take the next step and say, well, you know what? Let's wash your clothes so that we can pack, and then I'll help you get home. It's all about, again, you're going into their reality. Sometimes they may see things that aren't there. You see things that aren't there. You live in their world. You embrace their world. As a caregiver, join your parent on that next great adventure. That is my #1 recommendation. I know that you wouldn't change this caregiving situation for the world. I know it can be frustrating, it can be scary, it can be heartbreaking. There's going to be one day when your loved one doesn't recognize who you are. The first time that I had that happen to me with a client, I was like almost in tears. It was horrible. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a spouse or a child whose parent doesn't recognize you after all these years. I'm Pamela Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. I help solve caregiving problems, and I offer a roadmap to help caregivers manage care, to make good decisions, and to live through the day-and-day challenges of caring for someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia. I can't imagine what you go through every day. I know what I went through with my clients, and it's difficult. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. If you found this video helpful, please give me a like, give me a love. Share with me your #1 caregiving concern. That would be so helpful for me. And please share this video with other caregivers you love and know. Family members, friends. It's so important to help other people and to learn along the way on the caregiving journey. Share this video. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for spending your time with me today.